And there we are. We're here. We're live. And we are on Conversations with Dr. West on this beautiful Friday afternoon. And I am very excited because as my guest today is Adam Abramowitz. And I've known Adam for several years now. I want to say, gosh, over 6 years. But I'm going to read a small bio about Adam. Adam is a recovery advocate, podcast host, consciousness explorer, and the creator of Inside the Mind's Eye, a platform dedicated to exploring awareness, self-discovery, philosophy, awakening, and the deeper dimensions of human experience. His journey began through his own struggles with addiction, recovery, and personal transformation, an experience that ultimately became the foundation for a life devoted to healing, growth, and the exploration of consciousness. Through Inside the Mind's Eye, Adam hosts thought-provoking conversations and shares reflections on non-duality, meditation, self-inquiry, recovery, spirituality, and the nature of reality itself. Drawing from both lived experience and the years of contemplative exploration, he invites listeners to question deeply held assumptions about identity, suffering, and what it truly means to be awake and alive. Adam brings a rare combination of authenticity, vulnerability, philosophical depth, and practical wisdom to his work, whether discussing addiction recovery, the illusion of separation, the search for meaning, or the direct experience of awareness. His message consistently points towards the possibility of transformation, freedom, and a deeper relationship with oneself and the world. As both a recovery advocate and the host of Inside the Mind's Eye, Adam continues to create meaningful conversations that bridge the worlds of healing, spirituality, philosophy, human awakening, inspiring others to look beyond conditioned narratives and explore the profound mystery of consciousness for themselves. Adam, welcome to Conversations with Dr. West.
Great. Thank you for that great intro. It was nice to hear.
Well, it's the truth, man. I'm just so grateful to have you on as a guest because I came on Inside the Mind's Eye, what was that, a month ago, maybe?
Yeah, just about.
Okay. But as we know, time is just a construct. So in our linear perception, but who knows? It's probably happening right now. The old podcast. No, that's too.
Well, for somebody.
Yes. But now I'm just grateful to have you on because I think it's so important that you be able to talk a little bit about the work you're currently doing and then also your history and kind of what brought you to that work, your evolution, so to speak. And so I'd love to just start there. For those that don't know, maybe you can just dive in and tell us a little bit about that bio and your work in the field, mental health, addiction, and kind of what you're focused on now.
Yeah, let's see. Where do I want to start? Yeah, I mean, I worked in the mental health space, so I guess I could start with the experience I had at a warehouse that forever changed the way I experienced myself. I could start there because that's what opened up my interest in discovering, what reality is. So I was working at a warehouse. I was probably, let's see, a little over 2 years sober. I was 27 years old. And I was listening to a song a song called 17 by Youth Lagoon. And I was working manual labor at a warehouse where I'm cleaning tire molds, sewing things, just really physical work. And about a month and a half prior, I had gone to Israel on a birthright trip, which is if you're Jewish, they pay for you to go. And mine was a sober birthright trip. And I'm listening to this song, and it was a really, really, I felt really strongly about it that I wanted my friends in Israel to hear it. So I pulled up the group chat and I posted the song, and I start listening to it again, and I begin to imagine that my friend Eres, he was a soldier with us during the trip. I began to imagine that he was listening to it at the exact same time. and I'm looking out the warehouse bay doors, and I'm listening to the music, and it's swelling up, and something clicked, and I lost all sense of time and space, and I noticed the light, the trees waving, birds floating in and out. Everything just kind of became this pure expression of being. I saw the entire timeline of history in my head, from anyone that ever had existed, anyone that ever would exist. It was all just one thing, and it was felt in my body. The person, or the whoever I thought I was at that moment, disappeared, and there was just this omnipotent, pure expression of being. And I just started crying, and I went to the workbench, and I just sat there for 45 minutes, just blown away. So that was the experience that happened. And I don't know what caused it. I was raised Jewish with Christmas and Christianity, and I never was really interested or curious about spiritual things. I got sober. I didn't really know what people talked about when they talked about God or higher powers. I never really had my own relationship to a higher power. The only thing I did in my sobriety very actively was all the 12 steps and sharing and being honest. I just was actively being authentic and real with what I was experiencing on a day-to-day basis, because my life depended on it to stay sober. But I never had a relationship with anything that we could use the word divine for. Like, I just agnostic with an atheistic temperament my whole life up until that moment. So yeah, that's what started everything, because it happened. And then, I wandered the planet for like 3 months. I didn't know how anything existed. It was very difficult to form well, the first thing I started noticing was I was having thoughts, and I'd never noticed that there was a difference between me and the thoughts that were appearing in my consciousness. So I was very enamored and entertained by the types of thoughts I would have. And I began to play with them. I began to write. That's when I became really creative.
Yeah. And I want to get into some of the creativity piece, but I think you and I have talked about this before, how challenging it is to use language to describe experiences that we have. And so you describing this experience, but you did a beautiful job. I mean, you put me there. I'm in the warehouse, and I'm so my ramble is to say certain spiritual lineages will speak about experiences much like what you had. And so in Zen Buddhism, there's a term that you probably know called Satori, or the Satori experience. And for anybody listening that doesn't know, this is like a sudden intuitive awakening to the true nature of reality. And this shatters a person's logical dualistic way of thinking, replaces it with a profound feeling of oneness and deep abiding peace. And I've spoken to a couple individuals who have had this Satori experience, and it seems, like you said, very not planned, not, everybody that I've spoken to who's ever had this, and there's really only one other person, they said it was completely organic. This wasn't while they were meditating. It wasn't while they were trying to have that experience. It just came about. And so it's so beautiful in many ways, but it had to also feel a bit destabilizing, because it is such a, radically different way of being after that. And so, yeah, talk a little bit about, were you able to immediately pour that into creative work? Did any part of you get frightened as to what was happening, or was it just more peace and love and embracing this newfound engagement and relationship with reality?
Yeah, it was Man, I wish I would have known what Satori was then. I mean, I wish I would have had a language I wish I would have had things around me that understood what it was I had experienced. I didn't for many years. And about 6 months into the experience, I used to wake up in the morning and pray for it to go away because it was too overwhelming. I was so sensitive. And yeah, I mean, looking back now, I have better language to describe what it was that had happened and how the process of integration has occurred gradually over time. And I'd like to say before I go a little bit further, as you were talking, what I experienced in that warehouse was like a high. I think it's like something you could experience if you're on LSD or psilocybin or you were doing ayahuasca or something. You like those experiences are available if for someone who's actually interested in having that type of experience. But the most powerful thing has been being grounded and being centered with just the normal everyday, not very exciting, contented. This level of contentedness and groundedness is so much more preferable. Now there's this background awareness. One of the things that clicked off once that experience happened is I saw very clearly that there was no free will, in the sense that there was no one here. There was choices happening, but no one was doing any of the choosing. And that's the language I could use to describe it now. But at the time, I just saw everything as a happening. It was like I'm out to lunch with this person. They're speaking. Their mouths are forming concepts that are received by me, and I'm having thoughts about those concepts. And my hands are moving on their own. And now I'm using a fork. Everything was just like all this stuff is just happening. That's why I meant it was overwhelming, because I wasn't grounded in any way. Like there was no. My ego had been destroyed, but it had begun to reform almost instantly.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know how to navigate that.
And how old were you again at the time?
27, and I'm 38 now.
Yeah. And like you said, Adam, I think everything you just mentioned, these non-dual experiences, whether they be through psychedelic compounds, a Satori experience, a meditation experience, a mystical unraveling of everything that you ever thought you knew into a present moment stillness and engagement with reality. They can be sought after, they can be experienced, but then so much of it becomes, what do we do with that? And how do you live? The Buddhist teacher Jack Kornfield talks about, I think he wrote a book called After the Ecstasy, the Laundry.
That's good.
But this idea of like, okay, I just had this profound awareness that I'm a being here existing, and I'm experiencing reality, and my thoughts and my emotions maybe are coming from a larger, vast consciousness, but I still got to get in this car and stop at this stop sign and pay this light bill and put gas in, like and like you said, is there a way to do those things, stay grounded and not get lost in the material reality, but still have that spiritual awareness? And I'm with you. I'm on the same place where I've had some very profound experiences, but they're really become worth their weight when I can integrate them and weave them into my day-to-day life. And that for me is always balance. It's remembering, it's the yin and the yang. It's the body and the mind. It's the ego and the spirit. It's all of those, but when they play together, they can do some pretty profound things. And so that's beautiful. So then, yeah, your creativity, you're also an incredible rapper and lyricist. And was that around the time when you started to kind of flow into that and pour more creativity there?
3 years after I started rapping.
Had you rapped before that?
Not seriously. I'd messed around in college, just freestyling with buddies, but not like been like, okay, I'm gonna actually try. Yeah.
I messed around with freestyle and I was awful. I'd always be like,
Yeah.
my name is Wes and I'm from the West. Wait, no, I'm not. I'm from the East. It was like, dude, it was just not good.
Yeah, I was the same way. My idea of what was good was so far beyond what I was capable of that it would just come out terrible. But yeah, so yeah, one of the things I noticed was, and this is when I mentioned like my ego instantly started to reform while through the course of this, like that moment happened. I start seeing thoughts. I start recognizing there's no real free will, and that the self, the person I thought I was a complete narrative. It was a story. It was psychologically ingrained. I didn't realize that. It took a lot of more work to kind of see the psychology, and I'm continuing to explore that of my own body mind. But what I started to notice was there was reality is what we're experiencing right now, that is expressing itself as me and you, or as the listener, or whatever this is. There's reality expressing itself, and then there's my thoughts about reality. And what I started to see was that my thoughts were painting over reality, that what I thought about reality was in a lot of ways deciding what reality was to me. So once I started realizing, and this was my mistake at the time, not really a mistake, but what I saw a lot of power in thought, and I began to really play with my thought to the point to where I became enmeshed with it. And so like, I would say it was probably, yeah, right around the time I started rapping, I experienced this conflict with the dream I had created for myself, because once I started writing, doing the podcast, releasing essays, and getting response from the world, and the website was doing great, and I was living out of my laptop, I had envisioned this life where all I was doing was art from my laptop and I didn't worry about bills. It had materialized. So I was living that dream by playing with my own thoughts out loud. And I ended up in a relationship, and this is I don't know if I've ever shared about this, but we were driving one day, and we'd probably been seeing each other for a few weeks, and I wasn't really like, I was still the beginning of the relationship where I could take it or leave it. It wasn't like a big deal for me. But then something happened, and I felt this immense oxytocin, love, affection for this person next to me. And and it was like that I want to be with this person forever feeling. And it just appeared. And at the exact same moment, I saw that wasn't possible, that there's no way anyone can be with anyone or have anyone forever. And that's what began kind of like a spiral into a depressive state of being that instigated my pursuit for hip hop, because I saw, on one hand, I love so much, and on the other hand, I have no control, and there's nothing to keep. So it was an existential crisis that manifested and lasted for many a moon. And through the course of that, 2 albums were written, and that's what the records is about, me trying to make sense of myself and grow through the pain and I guess the truth of the conflict between, my emotions and my own life and my experience.
Yeah. Adam, it makes me think about, did you ever see the movie Life of Pi?
Yeah.
In the end, he's doing this interview and they're talking to him, and he says, I guess in the end, the whole of life is one big act of learning to let go. And that kind of existential awareness of anything that is form changes. And so our attachments with other people who are in form and ourselves, it's ultimately we lose that. But did we ever really have that to begin with? And like you said, this moment that you had driving and kind of recognizing its attachment, it's deep, deep attachment. And then like you so beautifully describe it, I told you I geek out and study A Course in Miracles, and that's my jam. And it says projection makes perception. And this idea that we as human creatures are not experiencing the world as it is, we are experiencing the world as we are. And it's this co-collaborative, we're always taking our narrative and understanding and interpretation of the situation, of the reality and the absolute truth, and weaving this story about it and creating this understanding of it. And it's fucking hard, dude. Like, it's hard because as soon as you see that, you almost want to go, okay, I got to just cling to absolute truth all the time. And the only thing that really matters is this. But then that makes it very difficult to have relationships, have any attachments. And this is where you see a lot of individuals take the path of asceticism and renunciation and just getting rid of any attachments, like the sadhus in India that will go and, you know, completely give up all worldly possessions, spread the ashes of the dead on their skin, meditate for hours and days at a time, only take food that people give them. And it's like, one part of my soul has always felt called to that when I start to experience that absolute truth more. And then the other part of me is scared shitless and wants to cling to everything. And, you know, the best I've found is the way of the bodhisattva. Is, the middle way? Can I do what Ram Dass talks about and be in it, but not of it? And experience it one eye on God, one eye in the realm of being human. Know that I'm a spirit having a human experience, not try and be all spirit and lose the humanity, and not try and be all human and drive myself crazy. But, and you know how we walk that, it's like a tightrope, you know, it's a delicate dance of how we do it. But I think you're a beautiful example of finding your own way and finding your own truth. So yeah, let me ask you, as you're going through and, you know, you're co-creating this reality and doing your art and participating, your podcast is really unique. And I mean that from the standpoint of, I don't know if it's my feed and what I see, but I don't see a lot of podcasts like yours. I see some that talk about consciousness, some that talk about identity, some that talk about spirituality. But you've really been driving as of recent with, especially your episodes called Effing the Ineffable, or Effing the Ineffable, where, man, you're starting to do it in real time. And what I like about that is, you know, I get super jazzed anytime I see somebody cutting through the bullshit, is how I like to call it, and going, yeah, personal history, personal identity, great. Let's talk about what it's like to be in reality right now. Let's talk about what it's like to experience your breath and this moment, and to see your hands. And because I feel like that those are the times when I can get pulled to it more and start to have those transcendent experiences. Because if I'm not listening to stuff like that, dude, I'm the guy driving in traffic, pissed off, marking off my calendar. I just got done with this meeting. I need to do this next. And I got wrapped into that for 5.5 years running that center that I ran. And just, I'm deeply spiritual, but I was damn sure not paying attention to any of my present moment reality, stillness, absolute truth. And so what I want to talk to you about is, how do we begin to go beyond the ego? I know for me, my work is A Course in Miracles. It's an unweaving of this ego thought system, choosing spirit more frequently. But what are some ways in which, you know, for those that haven't had a Satori experience or don't feel themselves wanting some deeper relationship with spirit, what would you say is some good ego work to do, and some that you've done?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I don't think I'm qualified to really answer it for anyone else, because the ego is important. And it's like part of the groundedness, so that it gives me the ability to have a job and be in a relationship and grow a family and have goals and aims for my own life. but I can really relate to what you just described, because other people talking and bringing me into the moment is so helpful for me. Like being engaged with people that are interested in examining what's really going on right now. No, like get rid of your history, get rid of your future. Like let's be here now, kind of a thing. It's really helpful for me, because the mind is always going, the ego is always going, and I think the key is just being okay with it and seeing it for what it is. And one of the things that I think is that I've been lucky, I'm really good at falling on my own sword. Like I'm really good at, I'm okay with being wrong. And in the sense that, Melissa, my partner, she's one of the, and Reed too, on effing the ineffable. I'm so hard-headed. I've got so much self-will. I'm just like you. I'm a hyperactive kid. I go. I have thoughts building on thoughts, and I'm not even aware of it. So I guess for me, the key is, and the compass points in my life is when I'm feeling the tension, when I start to get frustrated in traffic or frustrated at my job, or when I start to notice that the experience is less than preferable, for me, it generally I need to slow down. I probably need to sleep a little more. I need to eat a little more, and I need to just sit, relax, let things be okay. And honestly, I keep my fingers crossed that something like your podcast or another, like a Tole talk, pops up on my feed, and I can let them think for me for a little bit and just bring me out of myself and into awareness or into being. But yeah, so if there's anything there that could be helpful, I think it's I think it's just I think you kind of nailed it about, life is the life of Pi thing is like it's a process of letting go. It's like seeing things for what they are, allowing things for what they are, and just being what you are, and being okay with it, and know that it will change. Everything is always changing.
Yeah, beautiful answer. And I love how you say it's letting somebody else do the thinking for a little bit. And it's not even really the thinking, it's letting somebody else do the presence practice that can ground you and pull you back. I know one of my favorite things, Adam, has been anytime a celebrity or a large, figure that has a lot of fame or adulation will be at like an awards ceremony and just totally behave in a way that is non-ego stroking, but just counterproductive to all of it. Like I remember two of my favorite speeches. Andre 3000 from Outkast, he won a Grammy one time, and it's one of my favorite. Man, they bring him up at the award show, and they're like, and the Grammy goes to Andre 3000. It's big boy speaker box and the love below. And dude, he comes up on stage, he grabs that Grammy, he just leans in, and he goes, "Thank you." And then he walks off, and instead of going backstage like you're supposed to, he walks back into the audience, back to his seat, and just sits at the Grammy. And I'm like, yes, I remember that one. And then Fiona Apple did a beautiful one time where she got up there and she was like, don't think that I'm cool. Don't think that this is cool. Don't think that any of this shit means anything. Follow your own heart. Follow your own truth. You're a divine, beautiful light being. And it was just like, dude, as a kid, when I would see that, it would like break the matrix. And it was, or I'd see like Joaquin Phoenix, a lot of the trickster types, Joaquin Phoenix, Shia LaBeouf, anybody that would basically like Jim Carrey, turn the camera and go, this whole thing's a charade. This is a fallacy. You think you worship this? This is bullshit. This is an ego game. Everybody's stroking one another. And you think that this is important. It's not. You're important. Your truth. It's not real life. And so for me, we got to seek those people. And I love when Eckhart Tolle talks about it. He says, look, also be mindful though that every person has an ego. So anytime we see somebody and we start to be like, that's the guru. It's Eckhart Tolle. It's Ram Dass. It's Andre 3000. It's like they're the ones that they have. Carl Jung would say all we're doing is projecting our alchemical gold onto that person. They are allowing their ego to dissolve and spirit to speak through some absolute truth and awareness. And we see it and we go, it's in them. But it's not really in them, it's spirit. And it's spirit moving through them, because any of them could fall into ego. You know, like I heard recently that like Deepak Chopra was on the fucking Epstein list. And it's like, what? You know, but then Eckhart Tolle goes, but here's the challenge. You'll take that and you'll go, yeah, all that stuff that he's ever talked about spirituality needs to be thrown out, and that's BS because he's a failed human and has done these things that are horrific. And so the judging mind is always of the ego and always wants to play around with, you know, what do we do with the person that rescues a bus of special needs kids and saves them all from a fire, but is also found out to be a mass murderer serial killer? Our brains just explode, dude. Like, we can't do it. We're like, you either got to be good or you're horrible. And it's really, there's 8 billion of us, and we're all radiant children of God, beautiful spirits of divine light walking around and experiencing life. But we also have a fucking ego identity that, if we don't watch it, will take us to the pits of hell and make us project on everybody else and make us think that we're separate and we're not part of the same source energy and divine light as everything. And so all of it mixes together. But I'm curious, what are you most excited about right now in your journey with where you're at in your growth process, you know, with your ego work? And I think you spoke to it beautifully. You're not going to tell other people what to do, but you can speak to your own journey. And so I'd love to hear just a little bit more about how you relate to those things and what you're seeking in your life right now as you continue to do this work.
Yeah, I want to touch a little bit on what you just shared about forgiveness. And everyone's talking like, how could you forgive somebody? And like, they made this art. Is their art bad now because they're a bad person? And like, it's so funny. You can be the most awakened, spiritually in tune, enlightened master and be a terrible person. Like, those two things can coexist. You could be the greatest artist on the planet, delivering hit after hit that changes your life and makes everything in your life better, and be horrible, a horrible person. So yeah, it's discernment is a very big part. One of the other things too, I think is important, is life itself is the guru, and you're spot on that life itself is expressing itself in all these different forms. And so a new form will appear. You know, one of my mentors, Gerald, was with me for some time, but before him it was Vernon Howard, you know, and before him it was Bruce Lee. And people show up and they're part of your life, and then someone else appears. A lot of times it's Melissa and Eli, you know. Life is the teacher. So there is no like person who's got the ultimate authority on truth. It's within you, it's within me, it's within us. It's accessible. And then the other thing I wanted to touch on that I thought was pretty fun, I forgot about. So I'll go back to the question.
Okay.
Where am I at in my journey? I just kind of came out of this week was a really tough week for me. I found myself spent emotionally, physically, and I'm kind of in a space of, I get to be in this new space again of like, okay, great. I can drop my ideas of who Adam is and what we're doing, and I had a great show this morning with Reed and the guest I had earlier this week, Ines. I feel so lucky to have these people in my life that help me see myself for where I'm at so I can grow past where I'm at. So that's where I'm at, is I'm glad not to be feeling frustrated and upset emotionally, but I'm also aware of those things are appearing, like they're appearing there to tell me something. Like I'm involved in my life where I don't need to be. And I need to slow down. And that's where I get to be right now, which is nice, is like, I'm just going to slow down. One of the things when I go pee, I got to let myself pee all the way through the pee and not zip it up, not zip it up too quick. I've got a bad habit of basically pissing on myself a little bit because I'm so excited to move on from the bathroom experience. So
I laugh because I have that same thing, man. It's like, you know, we are, whether it's excitement or frustration, it's like, you know, can we just be? And can we be in stillness? And it's like, how many times I can understand that abstractly, and I read all about it, and then here I am, this monkey that's just moving way too fast, and the monkey mind will consume and all those things. But yeah, same way. I always think about, you remember Something About Mary? There's something about the movie when he zips up his junk in the zipper and it gets caught. I'm always afraid I'm going to do that at one point because I'm going too quick, and I just zip up my junk. But luckily, has not occurred. Knock on wood.
Talking to you now, it makes sense. I've been having, like, I get these flashes. I'll get these flashes of a vision throughout the week. Like my brain can kind of goes towards like fear-based a lot of times. So like Eli was walking around my car. It was parked in the driveway to take the garbage out. And I just had this terrible vision of the car rolling backwards. And it's like, and it's matching up with what I was shown today or expressed today about slowing myself down and being more intentional is so important, because I do move too fast. I'm always taking action, always doing things, but I don't give myself permission, or maybe I haven't allowed myself to be in the uncomfortable space of stillness for a while. So it seems like for me, I think moving on in the week ahead is probably need to give myself space to sit and just do nothing for a little bit.
Yes. And you know, that right there, Adam, I mean, I'm running a couple parent groups right now, and I find myself, I'm not a breath work teacher, I'm not a meditation teacher, but I'll stop the group. I'll be like, okay, I'll talk a little bit about breath work and how it's helped me. And I'll be like, everybody right now, let's do it right now. Everybody take a deep breath in, and then a big exhale out. One more deep breath in, and then a big exhale out through your mouth. And it's like, dude, that's it. It's nice. In us. It's in us all the time. And
why does it feel like such a challenge if I'm the one doing it? Why was that so nice, but like I can't do it for myself?
Dude, I think, you know, we run around all the time, and that's available to us. The breath is this portal that you don't have to pay anybody. Nobody's selling it to you, at least not yet. They haven't put, you remember Spaceballs where he's got the oxygen cans in the drawer, and he's, but it's like, dude, that's there, and it's always within us. I think it's part of it. I think this monkey suit, this flesh body that we're in as spirits, is often like an astronaut outfit. And sometimes we'll just start going. It's like, imagine being in an astronaut suit. If you start to move too quickly and you're not regulating your breath, you're probably going to have a freaking panic attack. But if you can breathe and acclimate your system, I think so much of it is beyond cerebral. It's not cognitive. It's not abstract. It's not theoretical. It's our nervous system. It's our physiology. And it's reminding ourselves of that. Where I love what you said earlier. It's like, slow down. I probably need to go sleep or get some better food and stay hydrated. But anything you can do to kind of ground on the journey, I think, is deeply important. And then, you talk about stillness, and I have found more healing in stillness than anything else in my life. And, it's funny, they asked Eckhart Tolle at one point, like, what are you most proud of? And he said, my ability to be in stillness. And I was like, damn, to think about your life like that, where it's not these, what have I accomplished? What have I done? What have I created? What am I going to do? It's more of, can I remain present and be in stillness more often? And I just think, we're moving into a realm with the digital world and the exponential growth curve of AI and technology and nanotechnology and biotech, that like more than anything, if you can find a way to be outside and be in nature and try to be as still as a tree for 5 minutes and get the hell off of your phone and clear your mind, there is so much organic, biochemical, neurological, physiological healing that is happening in those moments that we don't even recognize. But nobody's talking about that a lot. We're still in this hyper fixated culture of we need to optimize. We need to become more efficient, more productive. It reminds me of the Radiohead song, Better, Fitter, Happier. And at the beginning, it's just like better, fitter, happier, more productive, accomplishing more. And I think that's been conditioned to us for so long. And so it's like, how do we break from that neurotic pattern? And thought is so much of it too, where it's like thought is usually 99.9% neurotic, compulsive, negative, fear-based, amygdala-driven. But I love the awareness piece, because everything you spoke about, Adam, is awareness. It's simple awareness to, my mind is playing out these images and these thoughts. I'm moving too quickly. It's like the awareness is this little portal that kind of bing and can open you up to, wait a minute. Where am I right now and what's going on? Let me observe more what's happening in my body and in my mind. And then if you can do that simple awareness, you can start to move in a different direction. But it all becomes a practice.
Yeah, definitely. And a very important one too. I mean, there's a concept called neti, where not me, not me, not me, where you just, anything that you see that appears in your consciousness or that you think is a identifier for who you are, you recognize that you're actually the thing doing the seeing. So thoughts, not me, bank account, not me, job, not me. So it's a process of elimination. And yeah, that stillness that you speak of is, I love talking about or hearing about it. I don't know how great I am at talking about it, but hearing you talk about it, it's like my brain shuts off. It's so nice. It's like I can just exist in consciousness itself as it's living and breathing. And like you're talking to me, you're appearing as a form in consciousness and you're doing the thinking for me. It's so nice. It's like, I remember when I first started getting hip to this type of stuff, I started noticing one day I woke up, it was the middle of COVID, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to pretend like I was living with my buddy Stefan, and I was like, I'm going to pretend that everything everyone says around me is actually me talking to me. I'm just going to pretend, because up until that point, I was getting annoyed by him. I was like, why do I still have to be at this house? And like just being crabby. And I was like, I'm just going to pretend that everything that's being said is in my own best interest for today. And I had like one of the best days ever. It was like life took care of me. And Stefan was saying things that were helpful, and the books I was reading were giving me insight. And it was, so a lot of things can just be a flip of perspective. But the thing that remains is this consciousness, this awareness of what is going on. It's unchanging. You can't locate it. Whatever it is that thinks it found it is arising from it. Okay, so your attention is arising from this space. Your thoughts are arising from this space. The forms that are appearing in front of your eyes and your eyes themselves, or the seeing itself, is appearing in this non-space. There's no word for it. And so like, yeah, so that's when Eckhart Tolle says stillness, it reminds me, it's like, oh, we're in it. Like this, we're it. And
we're in it, dude. We're in it, and it's so quiet. It's so subtle, and it's so still. And so
what people get into trouble is, like, I'll use the example of the dogs barking in my house. When I get access, I have access to the stillness and the space of awareness and the presence and the peace and the being. It's great. Then the dogs start barking. a lot of people get into trouble because they think I'll speak for myself. I used to think I should be able to transcend the stimulation of my environment because I have access to this infinite space of non-space of awareness. But I'm still a biological being and my ears are sensitive.
Yes.
It's anytime I'm trying to change, and this is a weird thing, I'm thinking this through right now. If I'm trying to intellectually change the circumstances of my environment, I am acting out of ego. But if I'm actually in the environment and I recognize what's going on and I do something or move something or readjust or reassess, I'm not avoiding reality by intellectually attempting to transcend it. I'm actually entering into the discomfort, which I think is the path. It's not always, there has to be some sort of integration between the awareness of your being and then the character, body, mind, physiology, psychology of your own person. Both these things are existing simultaneously. It's not like there's only stillness and then it's expressing itself as Adam and Wes. There's also Adam who's interpreting and expressing and filtering everything through his own unique vantage point with his own unique needs and interests and proclivities that have to be addressed. So we can't live fully like you described it in the human versus the spiritual. There has to be a marriage between the two.
Absolutely. And I want to go back to you talking about the day where you were like, you know what? I'm just going to pretend. Because that's really, I think, a beautiful entry point for anybody, that you just start to go, let me experiment with my day today and let me pretend as if. I think that can be another portal to so much, giving yourself permission to kind of like, let me try to live like this today. Let me try to have a sensory relationship that's more like this. All of a sudden you're breaking a lot of habitual, indoctrinated, rigid habits that kind of get created over the years. Because if you're anything like me, you're like, nope, this is how I do it. I put my pants on like this every single morning. And when I walk out to my car, I do it like this. And there's something about novelty and being able to, that will bring you more into the presence. And so I don't know if you ever, did you see, is it Andy Weir's, the egg theory?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's a short story, right?
Yeah, I believe so. And I believe the first time I heard it, a client came in, young client. This was before the center, it was private practice. And he was like, I think it was the rapper Logic had put it on one of his albums.
Yeah, and that's the whole concept of the record.
Okay. What record is that?
It's called Everybody.
Okay, cool. And my client just showed it to me through that portal. He was like, so I didn't know about the egg theory. I didn't know much about Logic, but he started to sit and play me different stuff in the office and talk about it. And then years later, and I'll put a link up for anybody, Kyrgyzstan, the YouTube channel, put out a little animated video to the egg theory. And I remember I showed it to my team one time during team meeting, and a couple people came up afterwards and they were like, I don't like that you showed that. That fucked me up for the whole day. Just in terms of, it's pretty profound for those that don't know, where it's looking at the universe and basically saying that you are everyone, and everyone in the universe is an expression of you interacting with yourself, and you, the only goal is to expand your consciousness, but recognize that anything you do to another human, you are simultaneously doing to yourself. Any act of hurt and harm, you're really harming yourself. Any act of kindness, you're helping. And I just think it was a lot of intense thinking. Like, oh my gosh.
It's very challenging. Actually, there's a great lecture from Jordan Peterson from 2018 where he goes on a tangent and he's talking about responsibility. And he's talking about responsibility in the realm of your individuality and as a species, as a human being. And he used this example. He says, if you're not willing to understand the concentration camp prison guard and recognize that they're human and you're human, then you don't know who you are. Because what we'll do is we'll say it's they, them is the language we use. And we put people in categories and groups, and how could anyone ever be evil? What the egg is saying is, not only are you the one that's murdered, you're the murderer too.
Yes.
And that's, I can imagine that being challenging for people to hear.
Yes. And I'm so glad you bring that up. This touches on, it was Jung who talked a lot about projection and how the biggest darkness is when we are unable to see our own darkness, and we are unable to look at our own shadow, and the darkness that happens as a result of that is we'll project it outward. And now the evil is not within me. It couldn't ever be within me. I don't need to look at any of that. It's within that other person. And it all starts to become this projection. It's interesting because it ties back to this idea of separation, and that we're able to separate ourselves and say, I'm not like this person, and difference. And I love how you talk about, can you understand the concentration camp prison guard that, I don't know if you're familiar with Stanley Milgram's obedience experiment. Oh, it's so good, Adam. So in the 1960s, this was before Zimbardo's Stanford prison experiment, which was really famous.
I know that.
Stanley Milgram did another one, and I believe he was at Yale, I want to say. Don't quote me. I'll put a link. But his fascination as a psychologist was, what was it that allowed that prison guard in the concentration camps to commit those atrocities? Because when they interviewed them, the guards would say, I wasn't responsible for that. I was just doing my job. I was just following orders. I was just doing what I needed to do. So he developed a box, and it had levers on it. And he created this experiment called the obedience experiment. And on it, each lever that you would hit would have a shock. And he had somebody in another room, and he would bring in a participant, and they would read a questionnaire to the person in the other room. And the other person would have a thing hooked up to them. And if they got the question right, they'd go on to the next question. But if they got the question wrong, the person was told that they need to hit a lever and shock that person in the other room. Now, here's the trippy thing, bro. Nobody was really hooked up to a shock machine. He created the experiment to just watch if that person reading the questions and hitting the lever and believing that somebody else was getting shocked would keep going, if there was a doctor or an authority figure in the room that just said, the experiment demands that you continue, please continue.
Yeah.
Dude, it got so intense. I don't know the exact statistics, but a large number of people. And what started to happen is you'd read, so the guy's in the other room, nobody's really getting shocked. He's in on the experiment, but he would start to yell whenever the person would hit the lever and go, ow, that hurts. Please stop. I have a heart condition. I'm not okay. And the person who they're observing and watching would turn around to the doctor in the room, only a person in a white lab coat, and would say, hey, I don't think I should keep doing this. I know this is part of the experiment and stuff, but it sounds like that other person's getting hurt. And all the doctor would say is, please continue. The experiment demands that you continue. And a large percentage of people went all the way to the end of the shock machine, no matter how bad the person was screaming what was going on. It was a very few that would stand up to that authority and go, fuck this. I'm not doing it. That other person's getting hurt. I don't care what you're paying me for this experiment. I'm not hitting another lever. I'm done. And so it was all looking at obedience to authority and figures of authority with the concentration camps in mind, and trying to study that. And it got a lot of flack, but they made a brilliant movie about it that stays very true to the exact experiment and what Milgram did, called The Experimenter. I'll put a link and send it. But all those things that we're talking about, man, is like back to the egg. can we recognize at any point as humanity that I am you and you are me and we are intrinsically connected? And the one that really tripped me out, that helped me understand it, was, and you may know the story better than me, but it was a Hindu story about creation. And I guess in the Hindu world, Brahma is God and Maya is illusion. And the story goes that one day Brahma is really bored and wants something to do. And Maya comes up and goes, "Oh, I got a great game that we can play." And Brahma goes, "Okay, cool. Maya, let's play the game." And Maya goes, "I'm going to take you, Brahma, God, and I'm going to cut you up into thousands and thousands of tiny, tiny little pieces. And I'm going to call them human beings. And the game begins right now. I'm going to make you forget that you were ever one entity. For the rest of the time, you will run around thinking that you are separate, but you are one. And the game is trying to wake up and remember that you're all one." And so, I know we're all God. Can I remember it? And can I see it in the times where people hurt themselves and hurt others and commit atrocities? Can I still see that everybody is a divine, beautiful light being? Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah. For me, I guess the tradition I get pulled towards, like the Zen kind of Taoist tradition. It's easier when I don't personify human behaviors as being anything. So, like, I guess the way I see it is I see that we're all kind of governed by our conditioning and external influences. The great example is one you just provided of the circumstances around us, things that we may have experienced psychologically. And I was really into serial killers when I was in college, and I did a lot of research about them. And one of the best ones that I like listening to was Dahmer, was because he was so honest about what he was experiencing. And it's one of those things where, like, if somebody could stop themselves from doing it, you'd think they would. And you'd think if somebody knew that they would, by hurting this person, they could go to jail for 30 years, you think they would. But we're governed by impulses and psychological substrates beyond our conscious level that are operating at all times. So there's no one to point at as being, I just don't see why anybody would ever need to be forgiven for really anything or blamed for anything. But at the same time, responsibility is important. We have to understand what we're responsible for. I guess I see all expressions of the universe as appearances in form that appear and then disappear back in whence they came. But practically speaking, if we were to get into laws and jurisdiction and personal and individual responsibility, that'd be a different story, because those things are also necessary. But yeah, I try to be careful not to label a murderer as divine, but I want to understand the processes that allowed a murderer to occur.
Yes. Yep. And that's it's beautiful. Jung says, most people judge because thinking is difficult. And so when we look at human behavior, most people have a judgment and immediately go to the judgment and don't go any further into the deeper understanding of what governs behaviors and thoughts. And like you said, it's easy. It's easy to just go, well, this person is just a bad person. But when you start to peel layers and you ask the question of, why do these people do what they do and how did they come to be? That gets into a biopsychosocial, cultural onion that you have to peel. And then you go to, why the hell do I do what I do? And,
yes.
And would I be the same person if I was raised in a different culture, in a different time, in a different era, with different environmental influences and different everything? Would I even be who I am?
Yeah, and documentaries do a great job of doing this, because you're watching it like a documentary about about something, and you think the person's right, and then it flips. You learn more and you go, oh, they're so wrong. And then you learn more and you go, oh, they're so right. That's what we're trying to always grapple and like put things as either, but nobody really knows anything. We're like all trying to do our best to make sense of this stuff. So yeah, that's a good point, because if I were to wake up in Sudan, I would have a Sudanese culture and different perspectives and cultures and ways of interfacing with reality. It's just, but that doesn't change what reality is, though, which I think is interesting.
100%.
Consciousness, or just being itself, like being is. That's why I lean towards the philosophical and spiritual type topics and experiential, is because that can be known. Like whoever's listening can know these things for themselves through practice, through examining, through looking and seeing. I can't know what the heck's going on out there in the wider world of competing policies and all that other stuff. I really can't know, but you can know the ground of your own being and
Yes.
the way in which your life moves and expresses itself.
Absolutely. Beautifully said. Yeah. And I know I want to be mindful of time, but I wanted to say one other thing. I always like that question where people will be like, if you were on a desert island and there was this or this scenario, what would you do? And I always like, my whole life, I used to answer it with a lot of pizzazz and confidence. I'd be like, oh, I know I do this. And I do. As I get older, I'm like, I don't know what the hell I'd do, man. You'd have to put me in that circumstance to then see. I like to think that I wouldn't eat somebody else to stay alive, or I'd like to think that I wouldn't, do this or that. But it's like really, and that's another quote from Life of Pi. It says, look, lack of sleep and lack of food will change everything that you ever thought that you knew about yourself on every single level.
100%.
And yeah. Adam, this has been amazing. I know you and I could talk for literally hours upon hours, but to leave the viewers who are watching this, how can they find you? And if they want to connect more, I'm going to put links to Inside the Mind's Eye, but then, talk a little bit about how they can get a hold of you, man.
Yeah. On the YouTube channel, you can leave a comment anywhere you find my stuff, and I'll get with you. Shoot me a message, and I like having these types of conversations. So if you listen to anything and you want some more, you're interested in learning more, or have anything you want to talk about, hit me up.
Beautiful. Anything else? Any leaving comments you want to throw out?
I think that silence is what I should be practicing. That stillness. So yeah, I'm gonna. I don't know if I have anything else. The space of silence is, I think, where I need to spend some time.
Awesome. Adam, I'm beyond grateful to have you on. Thank you for coming on today, brother.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Real joy, and I'm looking forward to seeing more.
Awesome.